Sometimes the most loving God can do is to allow a pause. Not an ending nor collapse, but a pause like the silence between musical low notes that makes the melody more beautiful. We often think that when someone walks away or when circumstances pull us apart, it must mean the story is over. Yet in truth, it may only mean that God has turned the page, not closed the book. You see, there are seasons in life where restoration is not just possible, is appointed. But before that restoration comes, there must be a reason for it, a preparation for it. We forget God that does not rush. The Creator who formed galaxies over eons will not hesitate to take time with our hearts. Sometimes He must place a distance between people to allow the soil of their souls tools to be tilled, their roots to grow deeper, and their branches to stretch toward the light. Without that space, there is no real growth, only repetition. We get so used to holding on that we forget the beauty of letting go. Letting go is not always an act of surrender. To defeat it can be an act of faith. A faith that says, I believe God loves to me and hold what I want now, so He can give it to me in its perfect form later. This kind of trust is hard because it goes against our instincts. We want to repair things immediately, to stitch the torn fabric of a relationship before the edges fray. But if the threads are the same old ones, they'll snap again. There is a difference between something that's broken and something God has simply set aside. What's broken beyond repair will not return to you, no matter how tightly you grip it. But what God has set aside for a season will return changed, its nature refined, its value deepened. And when it comes back, you'll know, you'll sense the shift, not just in them, but in yourself. You'll recognize the work that's been done in the unseen places. We often cry out, "But Lord, why the distance? Why the silence?" But the truth is, it's in the silence that the real work happens. Just as a seed must be buried in darkness before can push toward the light, people often must pass through seasons and scenes of transformation before they can return ready to stand beside you. It is not punishment here, it is preparation. And perhaps humbling part of this truth is realizing that this refining season isn't just for the midst for you. Too, while God is working on their heart, He is working on yours. He's showing you where your dependence has been misplaced, where your faith needs to grow, and where your wounds still need His touch. Restoration is never one-sided. It is an orchestra in which both instruments must be two-toned before the music can begin again. So when you feel the ache of absence, do not mistake it for abandonment. It may simply be the sound of God adjusting the timing. It may be the space where His hand is reshaping something into a form that can last not for a fleeting season, but for a lifetime. The reunion will be sweeter because of the separation, and the connection will be stronger because it has been tested by distance and refined by the patience of heaven. And when the season changes, and you will not just get them back. You will get back something more beautiful than what you lost. The love, the trust, The bond, it will be tempered like gold in the fire. Not fragile, not uncertain, but steady and enduring. This is the way God works, slowly, Philly, perfectly. When God restores, he doesn't just give back what was taken, he gives it back, transformed, so that this time it will last forever. Change does not often happen under a spotlight. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets or declare its progress on a stage. Real change, deep, lasting change to happen in the shadows, in the quiet spaces where no one is watching. And God, in his wisdom, knows how to create those spaces. Sometimes that means stepping us out of one another's reach so that the transformation can take root without interference. We live in a world that demands instant results. If a relationship is strained, we want a quick fix. If a person is broken, we want them mended by tomorrow. But the heart is not a machine that can be repaired with a simple part replacements. More like a field that needs time, seasons, and careful tending. God knows that we're right environment, the seeds he plants in someone's heart will never grow. So he allows them to go conditions that don't always make sense to us, droughts to deepen their roots, storms to strengthen their branches, and winters to teach them the patiences of waiting. This is the refining process. It's not just about removing what is bad, it's about revealing what is pure. Just as gold must endure fire, have its impurities burned away, the human spirit must sometimes pass through trials that seem too intense, too long, or too painful. But it's in that heat something precious is formed, new strength, a deeper humility, a clearer understanding of what truly matters. And here's the part we often miss. While God is refining them, he's refining us too. You may think you're the one waiting for them to change, but in reality, God may be preparing you to receive them when they do. Sometimes we pray for someone to come back better. Yeah, if we're honest, we are not ready to meet that new version of them. We'd still see them through the lens of the past, still hold on old wounds, still react to the echo of who they were instead of the truth of who they've become. Distance then is not just separation, it's a shield. It's God giving both you the time and space to become the people you need to be for the future he's preparing. In that space, the unnecessary is stripped away. Pride loses its grip. Old habits break. New perspectives form. And by the time the two of you cross paths again, you are no longer meeting as the same people who once hurt each other, but as two souls who have walked through fire and come out purified. We don't get to see every step of that journey. In fact, much of it will happen completely out of sight. That's why faith is so essential. Faith says, even though I can't see it, I trust it's happening. Faith says, even though I can't be there to guide them, I know God is guiding them. And faith understands that sometimes our absence is the very thing that allows God's presence to do its deepest work. If you've ever held gold in your hand, you know it shines differently once it's been refined. It's smoother, warm, more beautiful than before. That's what God is doing, polishing the sharp edges, burning away what doesn't belong, shaping something, holding on to. But he's not rushing the process, because rushed work doesn't last. So when you think about them, when you wonder where they are, what they're feeling, if they've changed, remember that the work being done in the unseen is often and the most important work of all. The day will come when you'll see them again and realize they are not who they were. They have been transformed in the fire of God's refining love. And when that moment comes, you will not be welcoming back the person who left you. You'll be meeting the person they were or always meant to be. When someone returns after a long season away, it's natural to feel a rush of emotion. We remember the laughter, the pain, the disappromises. Our hearts want to believe things are different this time, but emotion can be deceptive. Nostalgia can dress up the past in soft colors, making us forget the cracks in the foundation foam. That's why we must learn to see now with our longing, with discernment. Discernment is not suspicion, it's clarity. It's the ability to look past workloads into actions, to see not what is promised, but what is lived out over time. A person who has truly changed does not just say so. They demonstrate it without trying to prove it. Their tone is softer, their patience longer, their humility deeper. There is no need for them to announce, I'm different now, because you will feel it in the way they move, the way they listen. They take responsibility without being prompted. You see, real transformation has a kind of weight to it, like a tree that's been growing quietly for years. It's rooted, steady, and not easily swayed. When change is genuine, it doesn't fade under pressure or unravel in the face of inconvenience. It holds. And the fruit of that change, the kindness, the consistency, the self-control speaks louder than any declaration could, but this is where patience becomes important. True change is revealed over time, not in a single moment of reunion. A changed heart will still be tested, and it's in those tests that you'll whether see the transformation was deep or just a temporary shift born from loneliness or regret. Someone who is truly different will respond differently when life applies pressure. They will choose honesty over self-preservation, compassion over pride, and commitment over impulse. And here's something worth remembering. Just because someone away doesn't mean the change is complete. Often, the refining process continues even after they return. What matters most is whether they are walking in a new direction, not whether they have already reached the destination. So you don't have to expect perfection. You just have to look for a different trajectory. Of course, this means you'll also choose to silence the noises of your own fears and hopes long enough to really see them as they are, not as you wish them to be. Hope can be a beautiful thing, but it can also blind us if it's not grounded in reality. If you look closely and honestly, you will sense whether this is a return orchestrated by God or just a loop in a cycle that hasn't been broken yet. When it is from God, there will be a peace in your spirit, even if the road ahead is uncertain. That peace is different from the fragile calm that comes from avoiding conflict. It's a steady knowing that the foundation has been rebuilt, that something solid has taken root. It's the sense that both of you have been shaped for this moment and are ready to walk forward and not backward. And when you recognize that kind of change, it shifts how you receive them. You no longer meet them with guarded skepticism or blind trust, but with wise openness. You give space for the new version of them to take shape in the space between you. And as you do, you discover that real trust is not about forgetting the past. It's about seeing that the past no longer defines the present. So when they come back, don't be swayed solely by their words or overwhelmed by your memories. Look for the fruit. Watch for the quiet consistency. Pay attention to the way they carry themselves when no one is applauding. That's where you'll see the truth. Because when change is real, it doesn't need to convince you. It simply reveals itself day by day in the life that is lived. When someone returns after a season of distance, it can be tempting to try and pick where exactly things left off, as if tying apart what never happened. But that rarely works, because the time apart did happen, and it changed both of you. The old version of the relationship is gone, and that's not something to mourn. It's something to accept. What God is offering is not a rewind, but a rebuild. And build requires a new foundation, one that's stronger, wiser, and more honest than before. This part of that rebuilding is releasing the past. That doesn't mean pretending it never happened or erasing the memory of what hurt you. It means setting it down so it no longer dictates your choices. Carrying old wounds in new chapter is like pouring fresh water into a cracked vessel. It will always leak away. Forgiveness is not just a gift you give to the other person. It's a release you've to yourself. Without it, the new foundation will carry the weight of old fractures, and sooner or later, it will crumble. But forgiveness doesn't erase the need for boundaries. In fact, healthy boundaries are what make forgiveness safe. A rebuilt connection is not about swinging the doors wide open to any kind of behavior, but about creating a shared space where trust can thrive. It's about making it clear out hostility you will and will not be acceptable going forward. Boundaries are not walls meant to shut someone out. They are gates that allow the right things in and keep the wrong things out. Once those boundaries are in place, something remarkable happens. Begin to see the past, pain transformed into wisdom. Instead of just remembering what broke, you now understand why it broke. That understanding becomes part of the strength of the new foundation. You know what patterns to avoid, what conversations to have sooner, what warning signs to address before they grow into problems. What was once a source of deep hurt become reservoir of insight. And because of that insight, the way you love changes too. It's no longer upon the fragile and need to be needed, or on the fear of losing someone. It's built on the choice to be together, not the dependency that traps you together. It's steadier, more deliberate. It becomes a partnership that honors God's design, whole people walking side by side, not two halves desperately clinging to each other to feel complete. Of course, this doesn't happen in a moment. Rebuilding takes time. The bricks of trust have to be laid one by one, each one tested under the weight of real life. There will be days when you're tempted to look back and wonder if the old version was easier. But you must remember it may have been easier, but it was weaker. What you are building now will not be fragile. It will not collapse the first gust of wind. This is the beauty of letting God lead the restoration. He doesn't just mend what was broken. He makes it into something that can stand for the long haul. He takes the lessons learned in the valley and builds them into the very structure of your relationship. That's why when the storms come again, they will find you're no longer standing on shifting sand, but on a rock-solid foundation that was forged through trial, refined through patience, and sealed by grace. And when you reach that place, you'll know it wasn't the absence that made you stronger. You used the way you allowed God to use that absence to rebuild you both. Because what's built on truth, trust, and grace just isn't to last. It's meant to last forever. When emotions run high, it's easy to mistake impulse for divine timing. We feel the pull of connection, the ache of absence, and we think this must be the moment. But God's timing is not swayed by our urgency. His clock runs on a rhythm that serves our good, even when it delays what we think we're ready for. And one of the greatest acts of trust we can give him is to wait not just for a return, but for the right return. Patience in this kind of waiting is not passive. It's not about sitting by the window, staring at the horizon, hoping to see a familiar figure walking back. It's about using the waiting to grow, to strengthen, to align yourself with the life you are meant to live, regardless of who is or isn't beside you. Weighing well means you're not frozen in time. You're moving forward while holding space for what God might still bring. When we rush ahead of God's timing, we risk stepping into something half-formed. It might look right on the surface, but without the depth that only time can give, it won't last. Imagine planting a seed and then digging it up every few days to check out that progress. Feel like you're doing something, but all you're really doing is interrupting the very growth you're hoping for. Relationships, especially restored ones, are much the same. They need time hidden the soil before they bloom in the open. There's a quiet confidence that comes with waiting for God's confirmation. You stop needing to force conversations. Stop trying to orchestrate encounters. Stop feeding the anxious thought that maybe you should do something to make it happen sooner. Instead, you let the process breathe. And in that space, You find that your desire for the relationship shifts from desperation to readiness. You no longer want them back just because you miss them. You want back because you are both truly prepared for the weight of what reconciliation requires. God's timing has a way of protecting us from pain we can yet see. Sometimes what we think is a delay is his hand holding us back from walking into a situation that's not yet safe, not yet healed, not yet ready to hold the promise he's spoken over it. And though it can feel like he's keeping you apart, he may actually be keeping holes, ensuring that when you do come together, it's not collision but a union. The discipline of waiting is also the discipline of trusting. Trusting that God is capable of finishing what he starts without your constant interference. Trusting that the one who is meant to return will not need to be chased or convinced they will arrive in the fullness of time, carrying the change, the growth, and the peace that only God could produce in them. And perhaps most importantly, waiting in God's time allows you to see the difference between something that is divinely restored and something that is simply recycled. The recycled thing may feel familiar, but it will carry the same cracks, same patterns, the same fragility. The restored thing will feel new, even if it carries the same name, the same face, the same history, because it has been rebuilt from the inside out. So don't fear the space. Don't resent the pause. Let the delay become the very thing that strengthens you for what's ahead. And when moment does arrive, you'll meet it with steadiness instead of scrambling, gratitude instead of grasping, peace instead of panic. Because when you wait for God's timing, you don't just get what you were hoping for, it in a form will last. When God restores something, it's never a temporary patchwork or a fragile arrangement that depends on perfect conditions to survive. His work is meant to endure. And when someone comes back changed by his hand, it's not just for a brief season of peace, it's for a lifetime of transformation. This time, it's not a cycle repeating itself. This time, it's a story moving forward. The difference between before and now lies in the root. Before, things may have looked healthy on the surface, but underneath, the foundation was shallow. Words carried more weight than actions, emotions dictated decisions, and wounds were left unattended. But when God has taken the time to remake a heart, the change runs deep enough to hold steady through storms. It's not built on impulse anymore, it's built on conviction. And that's why this time is different. It's not simply that the other person has changed. It's that you have too. You're no longer are fearing out or clear of losing them. And they're no longer reaching for you out of fear of being alone. Instead, both of you are walking into the connection with clear eyes, steady hearts, and a shared understanding of what it takes to keep it alive. You notice it in the little things first. There's a steadiness to their words. They don't overpromise because they've learned the value of follow through. They're not defensive when you voice concern because they've traded pride for humility. They don't disappear into silence when one conflict arises because they've developed the courage to face discomfort. These shifts are not accidents. There was the refining seasons, the waiting, the rebellion, and the surrender to God's time. And here's the beauty to it. When something has been restored by God, it's not held together by sheer willpower or constant effort. Yes, it still requires caring, a lively thing alive does, but the care flows naturally, not as a desperate struggle to keep it from falling apart. There's a peace that covers it, a sense that you're not carrying the weight alone. You're walking alongside someone who has learned just as you have. That love is not a feeling to chase, but a commitment to nurture. We sometimes think that forever means nothing will ever change, but the truth is, forever is made of many changes, growth, adjustments, and deeper understanding over time. The difference is that now, changes won't pull you apart. They'll draw you closer because you've learned how to grow in the same direction. This is why God's promise of lasting change is so powerful. It's not a guarantee that you'll never face trials again. It's a guarantee that when trials come, you'll face them together, the maturity, grace, and unity that were born the hard seasons apart. The foundation won't crack under pressure because it has already been tested and proven. When you live in this kind of restoration, you stop fearing the what ifs. What if they leave again? What if we slip back into old patterns? What if the past repeats itself? Those questions lose grip because you know that what's been transformed can't be undone by the same forces that once broke. You've both been through too much to throw it away now. And so this time, you don't cling in the relationship out of fear, hold with gratitude. You don't need to force security because it's already there. You don't worry about whether it will last because you know it was built to last. When God changes someone forever, he changes the story forever. And once that kind of change has taken root, there is no going back, only forward.